Alright, so welcome back. This is the 30 caliber bolt action pen, and today we are going to start off with the antler. So that piece of antler and the brass tube are there. So first what you see me doing is marking it. I'm marking it so that I know where to cut it, because that little triangle or the little angled piece that's kind of like to a point, when I'm drilling the hole, it can mess it up and different things like that. So I have that there marked where I'm going to cut it, and I use the little brass tube as a guide, as a guide. And now I'm marking the bottom half of the antler so that I can cut the bottom as well as the top piece. So I'm going to cut these two pieces off, and once I have those, then it will be easier and a lot less stressful for me to try and find a way to get it on there. So I am going to be using my mini bandsaw from Milwaukee, or my mini Milwaukee bandsaw that I got as a gift for my birthday. And yeah, so when you're cutting with this, it cuts really smooth. It's a lot easier to cut it with this than it is with the little hand saw that I have, or the little saw that I have. And yeah, so while I was cutting it, it slipped a little here and there, but that's the scary part about using a bandsaw or any type of machinery that cuts, because it can slip and you can cut yourself. So when you do this, you want to take it slow and you want to be careful. As well as the antler stinks when you cut it. It smells like the dentist when they get rid of a cavity. If you've ever had one, you would know what it smells like. But yeah, that's what it smells like. But yeah, so now I'm cutting the top piece of the antler. And the top piece was kind of hard to cut. Once I turned it to an angle, it was pretty good. So right there, you see my hand like kind of move back. So like something like that can happen. You can cut yourself. So you always want to be careful. So now I got my piece. And let me set the bandsaw to a side. Now, as you can see, it fits pretty good. It's about the same size, just a slight bit bigger. So now we are going to put this onto the drill press and get it ready to be drilled. So on the back, you see there's a reamer already on there. That was from a pen that I had made before. So we are going to be using a 3/8 drill bit for this pen. That's the size of the brass tube that goes inside of it. So you see me here, I grab the chuck key, take off that reamer, and now I'm going to put the 3/8 drill bit onto there. So you always want to loosen it, and then you tighten it up again with the chuck key. You always want to make sure that you have it tight on there, because if not, it can fall off and that won't be good. So right here, you see me fidgeting around with it. So I do that because I need to find the best way to get a straight hole. So you see me put it right there, and I look at it on the side to see if it would be a good hole or a good spot to drill it at and get a straight hole. Since this piece is a little bit of a curve and not a square like the other pen blanks, you have to kind of mess with it to get to the spot that you need it to be, so you can get that hole down the center. And these drill bits, or this drill bit, the 3/8 drill bit, I use it for another style of pen that I make. So it's not a brand new drill bit, but they're sharp. And another thing is, if you force the drill bit into the material that you're working with, you can damage the drill bit, or you can burn the piece of acrylic or wood that you're drilling a hole into, or any type of thing that you're drilling a hole into. So here you see me slowly drilling into it, and I brush it off, and I repeat that process. I constantly pull it out and then put it back in, and then the same thing. I do that so that it won't heat it up too much. And then once I see the little like strap, or not strap, but like the little shavings come out, that's the word I was looking for, then I start to brush it off. And there's been times where I drill holes into like the pieces of acrylic, but they're not squared, they're like somewhat of a rectangle shape. So sometimes they'll come out a little bit to the side, and then I have to dispose of them because it didn't go straight down. And yeah, so you always want to get it as precise as possible to save you acrylic as well as or materials and all that fun stuff. So I had to pick it up a little bit just so that it could go all the way through, because sometimes if I set it too low, the drill bit only goes so far and it won't drill all the way through. So yeah, so here I go all the way through it. Now it is ready. Okay, so as you see here, the drill or the hole that I drilled is center on the front side. Let it focus. Okay. And on the back, it's kind of towards the edge. That's what I was saying, that sometimes the hole comes out like that, and that's not good. So the cool thing about this tube that comes with the kits is that it is pre-sanded, and this means that it comes sanded and I don't have to do it. So I could just glue it in and I'm good to go. As you can see, like if you look at it really closely, you can see those little lines. So now I grab my glue and I do what I always do. I put a little bit on the edge and I slowly start rotating it so that I get a good spread of glue all the way around. And then I do the same thing. I rotate it while I put it in. I was kind of off camera, and sometimes I do that because I forget I'm recording. But yeah, that's okay, because yeah, that happens here and there. So what I did was I put it as close as possible to the other side where the hole was more center, and stayed away from the side that kind of went like tapered to the bottom. So now what I'm going to do is right now I'm getting my 3/8 reamer, and I'm getting the cutter head. So here's my 3/8 pen reamer kit and my cutter head. So it's a 3/4 diameter. So here it is, ready to go. And yeah, so now, so the cutter head is that fat part or the thick part, and the reamer is the part that goes inside the pen. So as you see here, that's the reamer, and that cleans out the inside of the pen. So if there's any glue or anything inside the pen tube, then it cleans it out. So here I set it up, and yeah, get ready. So I repeat the process as well for doing this as a drill bit. I put it on there, and yeah, I don't think I did a time lapse on this one because it went by pretty fast. So usually when I do these, it'll take some time because of how long it takes. So if I wouldn't do a time lapse on any of my videos, it'd be at least like 30 to 40 minutes long, and it'd be pretty long videos. So right here you see me drilling it, or not drilling it, but yeah, well, yes and no, but yeah, so I cleaned off little by little, and I started cutting it more and more. And this material is pretty hard because it's antler. It's basically bone. Well, I think it's bone. I'm not too sure. But if you know, well, just put it down in the comments or something. So yeah, so one side kind of took a bit of time because of how deep it was, and it kept falling. It kept going down. So if you look closely, when I start making that hole again, you see the smoke coming out because it started getting really hot. And you can see it barely at the edge of it. So now that I have it in my hand, I look at it and I check if it's to where I need it to be, or if I have to go any more. So right here, when I started up, that is the side that was closer to the edge, and that one, you could see all those big flakes that are coming off, as well as the smoke. And yeah, so when you're doing this, you want to go slow as well. You don't want to go too fast or force it on there, because then you can mess it up, or break it, and that can happen here and there. There's times where they'll break when you're doing that, but for the most part, it won't happen. So you see me readjusting it here so that I can get a better like I can get it a little bit better so that I could use the make sure that the cutter head on the reamer does its job and gets all the way down to the pin tube. And if you're wondering why we do this, is so that the pin fits the way it's supposed to, because if I wouldn't use the reamer, then it wouldn't work and the pin wouldn't fit together properly, because the tube would be too far out from it. So this takes quite a while to do because I didn't time lapse it. I just wanted y'all to see how long it takes to actually do this, because a lot of people, they see time lapses and they're like, oh, I wonder how long it takes. And this probably took about maybe 15 minutes or around there. It takes, I don't even know how much time, because I've never really timed myself when I do these. So yeah, I honestly should time myself to see how long it really takes for me to do this. So yeah, as you can see, I constantly keep adjusting it and messing with it to get it to where I need it to be. Okay, so if you're watching or if you're like listening to this already, you can skip ahead maybe a few, like a minute or two, so that you don't have to watch the whole process unless you want to watch it. But yeah. Okay, so if you've made it to this part, then you are done with the cleaning process. So right here, as you can see, a little close up, there you go, focused. You can see what the cutter head does, and then it cleaned up both sides. And now we are ready to put it on the lathe. And this is the best part, when you get to put it on the lathe. So you get your PSI bolt action bushings, and these are specifically made for these pins. As I say all the time, each pin has a certain set of bushings that are specifically made for them. And then why, if you're curious, why? Because each pin tube or the brass tube is a different size. And if you were to try and use different type of tubes, or different type of bushings for it, it wouldn't fit. So if I wouldn't have put those bushings on there, it would just be like floating around, and that wouldn't be good because you wouldn't be able to cut it. So now I have all my bushings on there. Let me just get one more on there, and now I put that on there and tighten it. So now I have it ready to go. So I put the back piece onto there and tighten it up, make sure everything's set and ready to go. So now I will grab my tools or my chisels, and yeah, so right here you'll see me start focusing on it right there so that you can see it a little bit better and see what I'm actually doing, because sometimes the lighting gets to it and it distorts what you're seeing. So yeah, you see me, I'm messing with it so that so y'all could see it, and because I can see it perfectly since I'm making it, but when you're watching it on video it's not too good. So you see the screen got a little bit darker, that you see it a lot better than when there was a lot of light. So the first thing I'm gonna do is clean off the edges of this, and yeah, so I gotta get my tool rest set up on the bottom of it. So right here, I'm ready to go. So now I start cutting into this, and this material's pretty hard, but it's like hard but soft. I don't know. It's weird material. This is my first time making one of these with antler. So yeah. So once I start doing the edges, I'll slowly start cutting into it, and I back up and then just poke at it basically. I do that so I can clean the edges and see where the bushings are at. And I am wearing safety glasses just to let y'all know, because sometimes I don't know if y'all know that I'm wearing safety glasses or not. But yeah, I'm always, anytime I make a pen, I wear safety glasses because I'm not trying to get anything in my eye. So you saw how it stopped right there a few seconds back. That happens from time to time, but you don't really see it because it's on time lapse. So this video is going to be at least like 33 minutes long or around that time, because I didn't time lapse these, so you could see the whole process and how long it actually takes for me to do these pens. But yeah, that's the cool part about it. You get to see the full process and not just like the process cut short. So yeah, so slowly I'll start cutting into it onto the sides, and I stop it and see what it looks like. And once I have that cut already, now alright, so now I am starting to cut into it a little bit more just to see what it looks like. And the first thing is that this stuff is really powdery. It gets, as you can see on my hand, it's all that dust. So the first thing I want to do is get rid of that outer layer, because it's really bumpy and it's real, like, it's a weird texture. Like, it's just really like full of texture. So that's the first thing I want to do with this. And that chisel tip, or the diamond tip that I'm using, is good for scraping stuff like that, like getting like fine detail. So that's what I use that one for. There's actually 3 that I have of that one, and that tool is pretty big. It's almost the size of my arm, so it's about like maybe 2 feet long. It's a pretty big tool, but it's pretty good because there's no vibration and my hands don't hurt when I use it. So as you can see here, I slowly start eating away at the surface of it, and I just have that little bit of the surface left to go. So once I'm done with that piece of the top layer, I will move on to the different or another chisel so I can shape it easier. And I put the noise in the background so that y'all can hear what it sounds like when I'm shaping these pens. Right here I change it to another chisel that I have. It's a circled chisel. I don't know what it's called, but it has like a little disc, and that disc is carbide, so it's like a really hard metal. And this one, what I do is I take off a lot of material with this one. So the other one was so that I could easily shape it, get it easier, make it easier on myself. So yeah, that's why I use a pointed one. So now right here, you see me with this one, and this one takes a lot more material off than the other one does. And it's easier to clean up with this one than it is with the pointed one. So yeah, so you'll see me go back and forth. You'll see me do you'll see me to where I'll go from one side of the antler to the other side, and then I'll come back. And what I'm doing, the reason I'm doing that is so that I get an equal like surface. So if I make it like thinner, I get it on both sides. If not, like one side's thicker than the other, and then I have to go back. So that's why I'll go from one side to the other side. If not, you'll see me do one side like a little bit, so I cut into it a little bit, and then I'll go into the other side as I just did now. And then I'll go all the way again from one side all the way back to the other side, and I'll slowly start getting the shape that I want it to be. So this one was just a basic shape. It's just like a regular slim pen. Well, it's not slim, it's kind of thick, but slim thick. But yeah, so it's one of those pens, like it doesn't have a crazy design or anything. It's just basic, but in a cool way. You know what I mean? So once I get it to the thickness that it needs to be, or that I want it to be, so that I match it to the size of the actual outer parts of the pen kits, then yeah, that's what I do usually. If not, you'll see me come with the caliper. I'll turn off the lathe and I'll mark it with the caliper to see how thick I need it to be. But usually I'll get it down to the size or the thickness of the bushings on the side. That's what I do sometimes. If not, um, I'll go a little bit thicker. Alright, so right here you will see me sanding it. I do this so that I see the high and low spots of the piece that I'm working with, because sometimes you get high spots and then sometimes you get low spots, and I purposely sand it, and then I'll go back again, and with a chisel I will go over it and I will get it all flat, like equally flat, so that it's a flat surface. Because there's times where I've made pens or I've seen other people's pens and they have that bumpy feel to it, and it's not a good feeling. And I don't like the way it feels like when it has like little bumps like that, because then I want to redo it and it just bugs me. I guess I'm just I've been told that I'm a perfectionist, and that's good, because we, like, people that are perfectionists do everything to the best of their ability. But yeah, so I'll do that several times until I'm satisfied with what I get. Okay, so then right here I will go again with the sandpaper, and this time I'm satisfied with what I got and how it's looking. So usually I'll do that. I'll sand it and make sure that it's good all over, and you see when I touch it, I feel it to see if it's any like bumpy surface, or like if it's smooth or whatnot. So yeah, then I'll change the side of it so that I could take off more material, and yeah. Okay, so here's a close up of how it looks. So I put my hand behind it so you could focus in on it, and you see how it's smooth. It kind of looks like ivory. So that's pretty cool. Right here, I grab or before I do anything, I wipe that stuff off, because, yeah, I always do that. It's like a habit that I have. So I get my stuff that I use for the acrylic blanks, and I was going to wet sand it, but it didn't work out. I started wet sanding it, or I got all my stuff ready, and I was going to get ready to wet sand it, but the antler didn't, it felt weird. It felt like I don't know, it felt weird. It gave it a weird texture because of the water, and I didn't like the way it felt, and I didn't want to mess it up. So you see, I wet sand it for a little bit, and then after that, um I just I don't know, I just tried it because this was my first time. making a antler pen, so I just tried it out, and then I felt it, and I was like, ugh. It felt kind of like rubberish. I don't know. It had a weird texture. I don't know how to explain it. So you see that I'll move the little container that I have with water, and I'll just put it to a side, and then I go back with the sandpaper and take that like surface off, or like, I don't know, remove it kind of, and get rid of that texture that it had. It felt weird and I didn't like it, so I was like, you know what, I'll just do something else. I'll give it a different type of finish instead of with the micro mesh. And then I grabbed this other sandpaper that's a lot finer and clean it up a little bit more, and now I feel it and the texture's gone. So yeah, and then sometimes I'll go back over it like several times, so I make sure everything's good to go and that everything is like completely sanded. Alright, for now, the close up, it's in 3, 2, and 1 right here. Okay, so the close up, now you can see it's a lot shinier, or not a lot, but like it has more of a glarish look to it now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over it with a bar of wax. This wax specifically made for like pens and stuff like that. So I'll go over it and layer. You can kind of see where it's been layered and like kind of like at the glare of it. So I'll go over it with the little rag and I'll stretch it out so it gets like tension on it and I can get the surface cleaned. So you see me turn it off, and you see there's little bits of bumps on there, and I rub my finger on there, and then I go back again with the cloth. And I do this several times so that I make sure that I get everything off of it. So when you're doing this, you want to be careful. You don't want to leave it in one spot for too long, because you can mess up the acrylic and you can melt it and then it messes it up. So yeah, you just want to do it kind of fast and good, you know what I mean? But yeah, like if you're experienced with pen making and you're watching this video, you would know what I'm talking about. But if not, then it's okay. But yeah, so see how it gave it like a really, really shiny look, and that's what the wax does to it. It gives it that that look, like it makes it like flashy basically. So now you see how it's a lot shinier, and it's like basically it's like a glaze. It's, I don't know, it looks a lot better with that polish on it, or the wax on there. So now I am completely finished with it. I've already I'm gonna start taking off those extra bushings and everything else and get it ready to be assembled. And yep, let's get to the assembling part. So one of the things is the bushings, or like the way it's shaped. I think one side's, I don't know if they were, if one side was a little bit thicker than the other, or if they were both the same size. I think no, they're basically the same size. Like it's all the same in thickness. So yeah, yeah, unless I just fit it to the actual thing. So here we have the actual or my, what is it called again? My assembly and disassembly press, or pen press. I bought this a while back, and I was so happy with the way it works. It's a lot easier than the other pen press that I have. So yeah, I also made these three beautiful blue pens, and there's gonna be a video of that after this one, or like gonna come out. Yeah. So these are the three beautiful pens I made for one of my customers, and yeah, when I showed it to them, they were so satisfied. And I don't know, the best thing about selling them is when I see their smile at like when they see the pen that like in person, and they're just blown away. So that's like the best part. It's better than making the pen itself. But yeah, that's just what me. And then also, like when I show them, or when I tell them, oh, I made a video on your pen, so you could see the process that it went through and how it became. So yeah. All right, so this pen is pretty simple. So you got your front piece and your back piece, right? So this one's a little bit different from the other pens that I've made. It's just two big pieces on there. So when you're doing this, you want to be careful. You want to make sure that it's all centered and you don't want it to be off to one side, because if it is, you can mess up the pen, how I always say. So you want the pieces to sit flush completely onto the actual piece of acrylic or wood or material that you have there. So both pieces sat flush with it, and yeah, so I check it right there to see if it's flush, and now I screw off or unscrew off. What am I talking about? Unscrew the tip of this 30 caliber pen, and I do it again to get it a little bit more. So right here you can see that both pieces are flush to the actual pen, like the actual piece. So right here's the zoom in. This is what I was saying, they're both flush. It looks like it's one with the metal. So now I unscrew the tip of the pen, and I kind of had, I think I had a little bit of trouble getting this piece. So it has that little protection piece on there on the tip of it so that it doesn't get ugly. And this is a gel pen, so these pens write really smooth. And then the bolts, the bolt action, and then here's the spring. You place the spring on there. I think I'm trying to remember. I think I did have some trouble getting the pen to come out, and it was a little frustrating because, well, not frustrating, but it was just a little like, what the heck, like it wasn't working. It was kind of weird. So you see me struggling with it here. So it took me about maybe like a good 10-15 minutes just fidgeting with it. It was pretty funny, and then until I finally got it. So I figured it out. So there's a certain way to put the spring onto it, because so you see how that side's a little bit wider or thicker, so that goes to the tip of the pen, and then the other piece goes to the back side. So I figured it out after so long, and I was just like, are you kidding me? But yeah, it's trial and error, and you learn as you go. That's the best way. It's hands-on experience, and yeah. But the good thing is I catch on fast. So now that I caught on to it and I figured it out, now the pen is ready to go. So yeah, it's a bolt action, and it's pretty cool. It's a beautiful pen. So yeah.
Running my socks when I'm stepping out of sex. I'ma hit it in the morning cause I'm whiskey dipping. Got my brother out in cash, flip flipping, chickens free, bro.